Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and last night I saw DC's The Flash, which is one of the most anticipated movies of this year, but also kind of speculated on. Yeah, first of all, I'm just going to give my non-spoiler impressions of this movie. And look, before we really get started, obviously you have the whole Ezra Miller situation. That stuff happened, and then before that even happened, this movie had gone through like 5 or 6 directors and writers, and it was supposed to have come out like 6 years ago or something like that. And you know, this is a production that has gone through a lot of different phases, and you can feel it a little bit. The other thing I'm going to say is that, like, you know, just if you don't want to see this movie, because it is kind of weird that, like, you know, WB just kind of, they're pretending like the Ezra Miller stuff didn't happen because they got to promote this film and he's the star of this film. And you know, so obviously if it feels weird to watch this actor who did all this stuff and has seemingly yet to face any legal consequences for any of it, I don't blame you if it's weird and you don't want to watch it, because it's you know what I mean. I did find myself at times going like, he's you know, like he's funny stuff is happening, but it feels weird to laugh at it, so I don't want to, because it's this guy, you know, it's like I don't know. It's a weird situation. It's one of those things where it's like, do you separate the art from the artist? But it's like, you know, he doesn't own this property, but he is the star of this one, you know. So it's like, or sorry, sorry. Anyways, my thing is, if you feel weird about that because it's Ezra Miller, then it's like, I get it. I'm not gonna blame you if you don't want to see this movie, if you don't want to support it. It totally makes sense, because it was somewhat of a distraction while I was watching it, right? Anyways, so there's that. Now, non-spoiler review. Let's go ahead and get into the non-spoilers. I'm just gonna say that I did really enjoy this movie. There's a lot more comedy than you kind of expect there to be. At times, it didn't really match the character or the situation that they're in, because some of it felt like Deadpool type comedy. Also, there are character relationships that feel like it feels like it was written as if you're supposed to have been with these characters for years and years, even though, like, we know this Flash and this Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, have known each other for one movie in the Justice League, and we haven't really seen them together since then. And yet the movie kind of presents it as if, like, oh, you know, these are old friends that have been doing this for several years now, and we're just like, here, they're doing another adventure, you know. I'm like, we haven't seen it feels like we should have seen a couple movies of this before we get to this one, because this is the one that's gonna mess with everything, you know. And it does kind of have that feeling of like, you don't really care if it messes with everything because we haven't seen this much, you know. It's been several years since the Justice League movie came out. That was 2017, right? It feels like we're supposed to have gotten a couple of movies involving the Flash and Batman since then, and then we get to this one and then we would really care, but we haven't gotten that. So it's like, oh yeah, those guys that met one time in a movie, and now here they are years later, and they've had this whole long storied friendship that you will never see on screen. And now it's all changing, so, you know, have fun. So it does kind of get weird with that, you know, where it's like, okay, we're just going with it, you know. Imagine you saw the first couple episodes of the Flash TV show, and then you just skip to like season 4, and you just like, okay, whatever. I don't know what happened in between off screen, because I didn't see it, but here, drastic stuff has changed now. Anyways, overall though, I will say the movie works. You know, a lot of the jokes land, even if it kind of feels out of place for this character. A lot of the jokes land. The audience was laughing. I was having a great time. There are some really surprising cameos. The CGI has been criticized, and I will say this is one of the rare occasions where I actually did notice the CGI got really weird at times. I don't know if they're putting like a smoothing effect over people's faces when he's in slow motion, or what exactly is going on. But you did have some, you know, Polar Express looking people. You know, you had fully CGI'd And I don't know why they would do this, because they have archive footage and they have footage from older movies that like, why would you need to fully CGI this person? But a lot of times it seems like they did, and it does not look great. So yeah, there are some distracting elements like that. I will also say there are some other jokes that don't land, and again, these feel like jokes that should have been in a Deadpool movie. And so I don't know if at some point in the writing process they had a more serious tone, and then they went through and they're like, hey, Deadpool came out and that was really funny, so let's go ahead and put in a bunch of these like really wacky moments that feel like it should have been someone else's movie, but we're gonna go ahead and just put that in. So there's that, you know. But yeah, overall it does work. The cameos work, the nostalgia works. A lot of the action sequences are actually really great. We do hit some serious tones and some darker moments, and I found myself kind of wishing, like, I wish the whole movie was like this, because this actually works right here, you know. So I don't know, I feel like maybe it doesn't quite strike that balance. It does feel kind of whiplashy when it goes from like Deadpool, you know, very, very silly humor, to like, oh, now we're talking about like, you know, someone trying to save people, and then you see people dying over and over and over again, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, this is like dramatic and dark and kind of messed up when you think about it, you know. Anyways, so, but overall it does work. It is a great time. It is not the greatest superhero movie of all time, like a lot of the hype had been building it to be. You know, they were kind of building this thing to be like the next level Dark Knight craziness. It's not that. It's not that. Like Across the Spider-Verse is definitely a better movie than this one. You know what I mean? But this one is pretty good. You know, like definitely as far as DC movies go, this one is pretty good. You know, in comparison to some of those. So yeah, I would say it's a good time. You're gonna have fun watching it. There's gonna be some things I think bother people. Again, the CGI, like, definitely at certain parts, those human faces don't look like human faces. They look like rubber plastic faces. But in any case, it was a really good time. So let's go ahead and get into some spoiler talk. Here we go. So yeah, The Flash. Well, first, we get a couple of cool cameos. At the very beginning, there is a Wonder Woman cameo. And it is during this moment where, like, a lot of comedy moments are happening. You know, Batman touches the lasso of truth and he starts talking about, like, really funny, like, if I actually wanted to stop crime, I'd just stop poverty. I could donate all my money to, you know. So, like, there's a lot of, like, okay, we're going for a very silly humor. Almost, like, I would say it's almost close to the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. And I'm like, what is canon? Who even knows at this point what canon is? And I guess after this movie, it doesn't really matter. You know, we're gonna get into the spoilers of that, but who cares, I guess, at this point. Anyways, so yeah, the Flash, basically, his dad is in prison and he can't get out because, you know, there's only one piece of evidence where he's on this security camera, but he never looks up and shows his face at the camera, so they can't definitively prove that he was not at home when his wife was murdered, right? And so the Flash decides, you know what, I'm going to go back in time, because I discovered that I can go back in time, which is something he discovered in Justice League. But, you know, I think in this one, he's like, oh, well, that was only for a couple seconds, but in this one, I can go back like years, right? So he does that, you know, which of course the Flashpoint, you know, so he goes back in time and he gets attacked by some kind of monster, you know, like, so basically all he changes is that his mom didn't forget this can of tomatoes, so he puts the can of tomatoes there, that way his dad never has to leave the house. And we never see who killed his mom. We never see that happen. That's not any kind of plot twist or anything, so we don't know exactly how his mom died specifically. We're just kind of told that it was some guy, you know, some guy entered their house and they, you know, the dad was gone, and so that's what happened, right? We never actually see it. We don't know exactly specifically what happened, but it was all because they forgot this can of tomatoes. So he puts that back, and then he gets attacked by this monster, and he's thrown out of the time stream. And this monster, you know, it's like this really dark armored, you know, looking creature, and you can kind of already guess that this is going to be another version of the Flash, you know, like, and you don't know the specifics, right? But you can obviously guess, like, okay, so this is either an older version of this Barry or an older version of the other Barry, or some kind of dark, messed up mix of the two, or something's happening, right? But he gets thrown out of the timeline, and now he, of course, is in this version of time where his mom is alive, but it's 2013, so the version of himself is a younger version, whereas he is present day, I suppose, 2023, or whenever the present day was supposed to be. Who, again, what is canon? Who knows? So now we have a younger Barry and an older Barry. They're both talking to each other, and he helps him get powers because he knows exactly when he's supposed to get struck by lightning in order to get his flash powers. So he sneaks him in there, which is a place he would not have been in this universe because he didn't go to that school in this one, or he didn't go to that internship. And then, they recruit the help of Batman when Zod comes. And, you've seen the trailer. You get the general premise here, right? They get the help of Batman. Batman doesn't want to help at first, but he eventually comes around to helping. And they explain the multiverse in this one. And this one's kind of funny. It felt like a direct jab at the way Marvel did it. Because in this one, they're like, oh, it's not, you might have been told in a movie recently that you create another branch in the timeline when you go back and change something, but here's how it actually works. You create a fulcrum point, I think that's what they call it, where when you change something, it affects both the past and the future, because time is, like a loop or something, right? It's like time is a circle. So that means that, you're not just affecting your future, you're also affecting your past, which is why, he's saying that's how Batman is now older, even though that would affect something back when he was born. So basically now you have Michael Keaton's Batman, who's much older than Ben Affleck's Batman, and that's basically how they explain that away, right? And that's going to be important later, at least in a small way. So there you go. That's how they're differentiating this multiverse from the MCU multiverse. And they do explain, like, you're gonna have some timelines that are parallel and similar in a lot of ways, like these spaghetti noodles that they're talking about, and then you're gonna have other timelines that are vastly different, and they're shaped entirely differently because they're looping way over here, and they just use these spaghetti noodles as a metaphor. And basically, yeah, they're just like, they're figuring out, like, okay, we need Superman, but the ship crashed and now it's being kept in Russia, so we got to go to Russia. And they free her, and it's Kara Zor-El, it's Supergirl, it's not Superman. Crazy. And eventually they help the version of Barry who went back in time to give the other Barry powers. Now he got hit by the lightning as well, so he lost his powers, and then they help him get his powers back. So it kind of felt pointless. Why'd he lose his powers in the first place if he was just gonna have to get them back? That felt like they just needed to fill time for about 20 minutes of him attempting to get his powers back, and then he does. So it's like, why'd we bother doing the thing where he lost his powers? That didn't seem to affect much at all. But in any case, now you got two Barrys with flash powers, and they go to fight General Zod. And here's generally where we get to the third act. So a lot of this movie, we get to this third act pretty quick. And in between this, we do get a lot of, Easter eggs and references. We get like him researching the other Justice League members. And this, by the way, this is where we had some pretty bad thunderstorms where I'm living in Northwest Florida. So the theater actually lost power for about 3 or 4 minutes, and while he's researching the Justice League, while he's actually like, kind of googling where everyone is, and he's like, okay, Victor Stone is not Cyborg yet, and I don't see any record of Wonder Woman. My theater lost power, so I'm hearing the audio, but I don't actually see the visuals because the screen went dark. So for about the next 3 or 4 minutes, I hear the voice of Temuera Morrison, but I don't see him on screen. So I'm assuming he was in there. Someone's gonna have to let me know, because I literally did not see this part of the movie. I only heard it. Anyways, the power came back on, and I got to right before they meet Batman. They're going to Bruce Wayne's mansion because he knows that that's where Batman's supposed to be. Anyways, and then they do the whole thing. So they get to this third act here where they're in Russia, and no, they're not in Russia. They're confronting General Zod. And this is where the movie takes a twist, and I kind of wish that they had stayed here even longer, because, they're fighting, cool action scene, but then something bad happens. Supergirl gets stabbed, and she dies, and then Batman gets blown up he crashes his plane into something, and so he's dead. And so you have the younger Flash who's kind of insistent on like, well, we can just go back in time like you did, right? Like you went back in time and you still haven't told me what you did. I guess you saved our mom, right? So we can just keep doing this. You know, they don't have to die. We can change the past. And so younger Barry goes back in time, and they both, at first, they're both agreeing on this, saying like, yeah, let's just keep going back over and over and over again. And we see them all die several times, right? And basically the older Barry comes to the understanding that like there's some things you can't change. Not every problem has a solution. And they're just going to keep on dying, which, if you know, you think about the logic of it, it's like, well, his mom is still alive. She didn't keep on dying. So why is it that these are gonna, that it's like destined fate for, you know, this Batman and this Supergirl to die in this battle? Why is that destined if his mom is still alive? So clearly you can save people. It's kind of weird. But in any case, the younger Flash becomes obsessed with trying to save them, and every time they do this thing where like he's getting stabbed by, you know, different sharp objects, and so he's getting really more and more messed up looking. And then eventually they're confronted by this dark creature that had pushed Barry out of the timeline to start this whole time loop in the first place. And it's revealed, of course, that this dark creature is an older version of this new Flash, this alternate Flash. And basically he had become so obsessed with trying to save them. He's been doing this for who knows how long. He's all old and crazy looking, and he's all messed up. His eyes are all blue, and it's weird, right? And this was a really cool idea where, you know, he had tried so many times, and he created like this time paradox where like he pushed the other Barry out of the timeline, which caused this version of time to happen, which created him. And, you know, it's like they created like this weird temporal loop paradox thing, and like it was really interesting. And then they show, and here's where we get our big cameo fest, they show like the other worlds open up, and I think there's gonna be some controversy because they CGI'd a lot of, you know, dead people a lot of people, you know, back to life to do these scenes. You know, you have your Christopher Reeve Superman, they show an Adam West, which I think they just showed footage of Adam West. They do have your Nicolas Cage Superman show up, and he's, by the way, the Nicolas Cage Superman is fighting a giant spider, which that's a whole story. You gotta go look up the Superman Lives, the Tim Burton Superman movie with Nicolas Cage, and one of the producers was insistent that they fought a giant spider. I don't know why, but yes, he is fighting a giant spider in this version, and it's pretty funny. So if you get that joke, you get it. And yeah, we see Christopher Reeve Superman and the old Supergirl movie, and we see who else do we see? There's a couple other ones thrown in there. Oh yeah, like old school 30s, you know, black and white Superman. We see him. Anyways, my point is there are several ones. I was kind of surprised we do not see the Nolan Batman, or at least as far as I could tell, I didn't see the Nolan Batman in there. I was like, oh, that felt like something we would surely see, but we did not. That's interesting. But anyways, we get our cameo fest there, and basically he's like, hey, look, all these worlds are colliding, all this, you know, we're causing the chaos of the multiverse, and everything's getting destroyed because we keep on, you know, creating these loops, and we're trying to save these people over and over and over again. And they're just destined to die, I guess. And so we end up having the dark version of Flash tries to attack Barry, and then alternate Barry, who is slowly turning into Dark Flash, he sacrifices himself, and because he dies, that means the dark version of Flash dies. Yeah, I know, it's all over the place. And basically what we get is this, honestly, it is a touching scene where Barry goes back, he takes out the can of tomatoes, and he gets to say goodbye to his mom, who, it's kind of awkward because it is just a stranger in the middle of a grocery store that she does not know. But they have like this touching scene. Basically, you know, put the can back. She is now fated to go home and die because she forgot the can of tomatoes, right? And again, we never see exactly what happens. I thought that was going to be a plot point of like, wait, who did it though? You know, we don't actually find out. I guess it doesn't matter because we never find out. And then he does do something. We don't see it on screen, but he mentions it really quick, and I feel like a lot of people miss this. He notices a security camera in the grocery store, and then we cut back to him he comes back to modern day, and he feels like he's fixed everything, and his dad is, they're having the case to get, I don't remember what you call it, but he's having the case to get him released. And basically the new footage that they had reconstructed from the grocery store back in the day. At the beginning of the movie, this footage showed that he never looked up, and so they couldn't prove that he was not at home. But this time, when they show the footage, he does look up, and now they're like, oh, well, that proves you were not at home. That means you did not kill your wife. And it turns out what he changed was that he had put all the tomato cans at the top shelf, so his dad has to reach up and grab the tomato can, so now the camera catches his face. His dad is let free. Everything seems to be going fine, except because, again, this is where it comes important, the fulcrum point thing, where like you change something to make your past better. That means it affected you change the past, it messed with your future, but it also messes with the further past. Anyways, basically now he's like, okay, I'm gonna go meet Bruce Wayne. He's coming out, and yes, it is George Clooney who comes out of the limousine, not Ben Affleck or Michael Keaton. It's George Clooney, and he's like, who the hell is this guy? And George Clooney just kind of gives him looks like, Barry, it's me, so yes, at the end of this movie, the Flash is now in a world where you have George Clooney's Batman. Now, does that directly mean the events of Batman and Robin happened? Maybe. Or we don't actually get that confirmed, but yeah, that's kind of where the movie ends. And then we do get a small post-credit scene, which honestly was just really confusing, where the Flash is trying to explain all of this to Aquaman. So yeah, Jason Momoa does show up, and Jason Momoa is really drunk, and he's fallen over, and he lands in a puddle in the middle of the sidewalk, and he's just like, Barry, give me more beer, and he's just like in this puddle, and then he just stays there. And I was like, okay, it was really weird. And again, I don't know if this is just like the Deadpool type humor, but I was like, what? Okay, all right, okay, this is what you decided to do for your post-credit scene. It's just really weird joke cameo from a Aquaman that we hadn't seen all movie. So yeah, not sure what to take away from that post-credit scene, but in any case, now, yeah, this is where we're at. And the kind of funny thing is that, because this all dealt with the time changing and timelines being erased and him trying to fix everything, but even by the end of the movie, Batman is changed again. So he didn't really fix everything, like he made his situation better, he freed his dad, and that's great, but we're kind of still in the same place, aren't we? We're like, I guess you didn't save anyone's life, but you still, like, you changed things. And the whole, someone had pointed this out, where like we have Across the Spider-Verse, where we have a character who knows his dad is about to die, and even though he's been told that this is going to mess with the universe and it's going to mess with the timelines and you can't change this, he says, no, I'm going to change this because I'm a hero and it's what I do, and we can't just like let people die. He saved the other cop in the other timeline, and they're like, that almost messed things up, and he's like, yeah, but we save people, it's what we do, right? Like, we're heroes. And that seems to be the takeaway of Across the Spider-Verse, of like, no, he's right, like, we are supposed to be the good guys here. And then we get to this movie, and it almost seems like the lesson is the opposite, where, it's like, no, don't change anything. You can't save everyone. You do just have to accept some things. And it seems like the complete opposite lesson of what Miles learned in Across the Spider-Verse. So it's kind of funny that you have like these multiversal movies and different timeline movies, and they're so similar, and yet the conclusion they reach seems to be the opposite. We still don't know what's going to happen in the third Spider-Verse movie, but it is kind of funny that like, they went the complete opposite direction, where this Flash just has to accept some things can't be changed and some people can't be saved, which, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to think about. Like, I don't know what that implies, or I guess the situation's a little bit different because in the Flash the event has already happened, whereas in Spider-Verse they're trying to stop something from happening. So I guess you could say that that's slightly different, I guess. But yeah, in any case, The Flash, I enjoyed it. The comedy was a little weird. The cameos work, and you have that great moment where you see the other worlds. But ultimately, I am still kind of left with like a, I don't think that the George Clooney Batman is going to be James Gunn's Batman. I don't think that that's what we're doing with here. So if that's not what's happening, if that's not what's happening in his Batman, it does kind of feel like, okay, so we did all this timeline rearranging and timeline erasing and multiversal stuff, but even then it doesn't really tie into the big, universe is gonna get erased, continuity's changing anyways, so it is weird that we have this movie where the continuity was changed, and it's like, so if George Clooney is not your Batman, then we just got to change the continuity again anyways. So I don't know, it's just interesting. And I fully acknowledge this movie was written and mostly finished before the James Gunn stuff even happened, so like you can't really blame him on that because this movie was done. It was already a thing. But yeah, if this is not the universe that James Gunn is making, then it's like, all right, this is just, if nothing else, this was an interesting experiment of a multiversal movie, which we've gotten a lot of those lately. But I will say, I think this one was definitely more of a multiversal trek than some of the other entries that we've had. But yeah, I don't know, I enjoyed The Flash, but it does kind of feel like, this would all feel like it impacted a little bit more if we had cared more about these DC characters. And I know the Snyderverse has its fans, and they really, really love these movies, but we did not get 10, 12, 15 movies leading up to this one. We did not get like this epic saga of, this version of Bruce Wayne and this Flash being friends and going on these missions and having this like jokey kind of relationship. We didn't really get that. So we just kind of thrown in here, and then we're just like, oh man, that's cool. By the way, now everything's changing. It's like, all right, okay, but yeah, I don't know. Overall, it works. It's a really good movie. It's not great. There are, the CGI is questionable. The comedy is kind of questionable. Some of the tone shifts are drastic. But overall, I would say it was a pretty good time. Anyways, that's The Flash. Let me know what you guys think about it. And yeah, at the end of the day, if the George, I'm sure there's going to be people that are mad for several reasons. If it's going to be that there's no Henry Cavill, or that we end up in the George Clooney Batman universe, it's kind of unclear how exactly far that reaches. The weird post-credit scene with Aquaman, that like I don't really get the joke. I don't think anyone in the theater really got what the joke was supposed to be there. He's just really drunk and then he falls in the puddle. Like, okay, all right. Anyways, yeah, that was The Flash. Very interesting. Overall it works, and it's kind of a miracle that it works because of how many directors and writers this had to go through. It's astonishing, really, that they managed to get a product out that was actually this good. Not amazing, not what it was hyped up to be, but the fact that it was this good at all, it's kind of a miracle. They had so many hurdles to get past on the way to this thing being a reality. So the fact that it's here and it's not a complete train wreck, that's a miracle. So anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.